Because it's something maybe over the last 20 years or so, we've become more comfortable with in the sense that it's definitely discussed more. I would suspect that nearly everybody now knows somebody who has a disability, whether it's an autism diagnosis and it's someone in your child's class, or whether it's a family member, a neighbor, somebody in your community. We can nearly all point to somebody we know. Or if we can't, we can probably point to some TV personality, character, actor who has a diagnosis of a disability. So we're becoming much more comfortable with it in that sense and much more aware of it. But a point that I always try and make is that there's a huge difference between being aware of something and understanding something. I'm aware that Mandarin is a language, but I don't understand it. So I'm not much use to anybody who only speaks that language. In the same way, I suppose there's a lot of I often find when we don't know about something, it's very easy for misconceptions, rumors, old wives' tales to kind of stick on things, and they can create a huge amount of barriers. And there's loads of these misconceptions, but I just wanted to pick a couple at the start to kind of address. I think for a lot of people, when we talk about disability, and particularly because this is an employment event, straight away people's perception is, well, people with disabilities need to be looked after, need to be cared for. But certainly, they don't need support into employment. That's not what somebody with a disability needs. That can be further for the truth. And I believe that employment is something that gives everybody dignity. While it might look differently for different people, some people might want to work 40 hours a week, work a half a day a week. People with disabilities can afford to make a contribution in the workplace. There can be a perception that people with disabilities are less capable, that because people have to do things in a different way, that they're somehow less able, less competent, less reliable than somebody who doesn't have a disability. And of course, this is a very flawed understanding of how there's a reality that within society, there's people who develop in a different way to other people, but this doesn't mean the person isn't able to do the same things, albeit sometimes in a different way. I think one of the biggest dangerous misconceptions from the point of view of employment is there's that sense of, well, I'm a very inclusive person. I'd love to hire someone who has a disability, but sure, I'd know if I did, and then I'd make the appropriate accommodations. But of course, the reality is most disabilities are hidden, and most people won't tell you that they have a disability. So we actually have to have the skills to proactively plan and proactively reach out and support people who want to come forward and want to ask for accommodations. Only a very small number of people are affected by disability. I'll just take the community that I know best, the autism community. 1 in 65 people in school today has a diagnosis of autism. Now, think about that in the context of your life. Everybody you know, we all know hundreds of people. And yet, most people maybe think they know one autistic person. So there's the reality that maybe we can point to one person we know who maybe will be the person with very, very high support needs, for example. But we're not realizing that actually this is such a common occurrence. We're interacting with people with various different disabilities right throughout every day of our lives. And then I think this is another key one when it comes to the UN Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities and changing how we understand disabilities. There can be a perception that people with disabilities should have to do all of the hard work, that if you're a person um, with a disability, that you need to adapt to fit in to the bigger picture. What most people don't realize is that people with disabilities have to put in massive energy to do the most simple things that other people don't have to think to at all. That people with disabilities, autistic people, are adapting every day, but it's only if other people meet halfway that you can have that true inclusion.